Hi everyone, just before we get into this episode of Type 1 I just wanted to say, first of all, thank you so much for pressing play. I really hope you enjoy this episode. If you do, don't forget to hit subscribe and you'll be notified when new episodes come about. You can find us across podcast land on Spotify, iTunes, all those good places as well. Secondly, anything you hear on this podcast should not be taken as medical advice. I am, of course, not a professional, and you do need to seek advice from your healthcare team before making any changes to your diabetes management. And lastly, if you want to say hello, I do have an Instagram page specifically for the Type 1 podcast. You can find it at Studio Type 1. That's at Studio Type 1, the number, on 1, the number. And you can also come and say hello and follow me on my personal page, which is at Miss Jen Greaves. And all of that will be noted in the episode description. Hi everyone, and welcome to Type 1, a podcast that delves into the obscure, complex and challenging world of life with Type 1 diabetes. I'm Jen Greaves, and each week, with the help of some brilliant guests, I'll be showing that there is no normal when it comes to handling this whopper of a chronic condition, because we're all pretty much figuring out the messiness of day-to-day life with diabetes as we go. And most of all, even though it doesn't always feel like it, we are absolutely not alone. My guest today is Kyle Parsley. Kyle is a marketing manager originally from Wolverhampton, now living in London with his wife, Beth. Diagnosed with type 1 diabetes in 2005, Kyle is also one of the founders of Type 1 Community, which is a collective of radio shows, club nights, events, and live streams that brings people together under the slogan, where everyone parties to make life with diabetes better. But what started out as a trio of Type 1 DJs who wanted to bring people together has quickly evolved into a movement that goes way beyond the dance floor. Type 1 Community is a celebration, but as it's evolving, Kyle, along with his co-founders Sophia, Violet and JU, are also tackling diabetes stigma and discrimination in clubs and bars across the UK. From being able to take hypo treatments into clubs, to confusing drunkenness with a low blood sugar, and the misconceptions that are being reinforced by the use of glucose sensors by people without type 1 diabetes, Type 1 Community are working to shift the party scene for people living with type 1 diabetes one night at a time. Hello, Kyle.
Hi, Jen.
Wow, there's so much in that. There is so much to talk about here. How are you doing today?
I'm great, thank you, and thank you for having me on the podcast. It's a pleasure. I've loved listening to the previous ones.
It's lovely to hear that. No, I am so happy that you guys are coming on. As I said to you before, I just love what you're doing, and as someone who's worked in the music industry, who's been on a few nights out in my time, I just think this is such an incredible project. And as I sort of alluded to there, it's quickly kind of morphed into its own thing, hasn't it? Did you have any idea that it would pick up in the way that it has?
We didn't. We knew it would get some traction because there's a lot of us out there, and there's more than we thought of type 1 diabetics out there that were partying. We started to see more people with it as we were going out to festivals over the summer, the last couple of summers, and people were getting there's a bit more accessibility to CGM, so we'd go out and see people with sensors on their arms and pods, and so we knew there was an appetite, but we had no idea how much and how well responded it was going to be amongst the community. We, like myself, Jessica and Sophia, we just said we just want this to be fun. We don't want it to be an extra job. We don't want it to be stress. We just wanted to do our part and raise awareness, and it's something that we all felt independently we would have benefited from hugely in our own journeys. So when we actually went out with it and then saw the response and how big a response, honestly, the amount of times we were saying, I'm overwhelmed, back and forth in that WhatsApp group was unreal.
There's something about it I think is so special, because music is obviously so special, and you're a DJ as well as working in the music industry. You know, I don't need to tell you that, and everyone listening will understand that in their own way. But this is about diabetes, but it's not just that you're brought together because of diabetes. That's a part of it, of course. And this safe space that you're creating and this celebration is incredibly important. But music is such a great connector. Nights out when you see other people and you vibe and you start chatting, that kind of thing. But diabetes in of itself is an amazing connector. But the kind of duality with that is what we're dealing with and what people go through a lot of the time is really, really isolating, and it can be quite lonely. So I sort of love this energy around it that, like you say, you wanted it to be fun. And I do think there's a lot of stuff out there that is quite intimidating for people when it is about diabetes. Does that sort of resonate in terms of what you're doing in the movement that's kind of around diabetes, but it's also not diabetes? Do you know what I mean?
Completely, yes. I mean, even now, I still find things intimidating, and I've had diabetes since I was 14, 19 years now. So I was diagnosed in 2005, and then it was super intimidating just from the fact of the material that you presented with, the way it was communicated. It didn't feel as inclusive as it could have done. And now there's still conversations and people will meet and all sorts of technologies and terminologies coming out there that I still don't understand. And it's, you have to keep up with it. But I think that with something like Type 1 Community, it's really offered that accessible, easy understanding opportunity for people who are, I guess, a bit nervous of finding a community or going to a diabetes camp or doing a hangout like that and not really knowing what to expect and not really thinking it's for them, and finding a sort of a tribe within Type 1 Community, especially around people who enjoy partying and going out, which tend to be the younger generation. It's really opened up the doors from that, and the floodgates have really opened in terms of what people have been commenting and saying. And I remember when we first announced and we had people messaging the page, telling the stories that they, we were the first ones they were telling because it felt straight away that we're going to get it and they could relate to us and we would understand them, which I think has been really, I guess, overwhelming to go on that theme.
Yeah.
The fact that
overwhelming in a good way, hopefully.
In a good way, in a really, all of this is in a positive way. We didn't quite expect that, to have touched so many people in that way, to the point where they feel comfortable talking to us and sharing those moments that they hadn't feel comfortable with sharing with others because simply they felt that they wouldn't understand.
Yeah, there's nothing like that, is there? People who just get it. And we'll get into sort of your life as well, but dealing with this and trying to fit it in around your lifestyle, especially when that lifestyle is not necessarily based on routine. You've got long hours, you've got traveling, you're dancing, you're partying. There's a lot going on here that you're sort of carrying alongside diabetes, or you're trying to experience without diabetes undermining that experience. And to sort of create this space where it's like, we're all here and it's not just you. Yeah, there's definitely something special about that. And it's not this pressure to be like, talk about your diabetes. Sometimes that feels intimidating as well. And I say that with the awareness that I have a type 1 diabetes podcast. But, sort of having the music as that bed, as that beat, as that rhythm that's bringing people together. Yeah, it's really, really cool. Has it been strange for you to suddenly, and correct me if I'm wrong if this hasn't been such a shift, but I guess you're talking about type 1 diabetes a lot more now than perhaps you were before. What's that been like for you?
Honestly, if you would have told me years ago that I'd be sitting on a podcast talking about type 1 diabetes, I would have said, nah, you've got the wrong person there. I was so quiet about it when I was growing up, even to the point of young adulthood. And it's only in recent years I've actually been a lot more open about it. Being diagnosed as a teenager was a tough time. We probably can imagine. It's no one else at school had it. Didn't know, I knew this person, or actually my PE teacher had it, who was obviously a lot older than me at the time. But you kind of felt alone, isolated. Other children at that age are just not going to get it. That probably make fun, think you're odd. So I just felt, you know what, I'm just gonna not really talk about this and just crack on. And I think not having these sort of platforms was a problem. It was a bit of an issue. And if something like this was accessible when I was younger, to kind of bridge that gap of going from teenage into young adolescence, it would have been a completely different story. But that stuck with me. And it became, I just kind of live life still managing it and doing my best around there. And obviously, call friends new, but I wouldn't really talk about it. I'd go, if I was out at a restaurant, I'd go off to the toilets and do my injections. I wouldn't do them in public. I was really sort of reserved about it, really hidden. It wasn't until I met Jessica when I started to talk about it a lot more, because I felt I had a partner in that. And when we announced Type 1, I said to Jessica, I said, Sophia, there's going to be people message me now who are going to be like, what? You have Type 1 diabetes? How do we not know this? And of course I did. But I think when I explained myself to people, some of my closer friends, they completely understood. So yeah, like doing all this now, it's been really helpful for me to be able to talk about it myself. And I have so many years of experience with it. And there's people who we've met who are newly diagnosed in the last 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, and they want to find information and they want to talk to like-minded people. And it's great to be able to share my experiences. And the one thing I always say is don't hide it. Be proud of it, because talking and sharing awareness and sharing that visibility is only going to benefit you. Otherwise, you are just going to feel more isolated, which I think is what happened to me. And being able to voice it and be a champion of it now, it's like it's a different world for me.
Yeah, nice. That's really nice to hear. And I think your story is a common one. You were 14 when you were diagnosed, and I was 8, and I sort of liked it for a minute because all the adults were giving me attention, but then I just wanted to get on with my life, and I did push it down. I really brushed it away and pretended it was nothing that anyone else needed to concern themselves with. And I just carried that through my teenage years into my 20s until it all sort of came crashing down, really. And I think that's a journey that a lot of people go on. So yeah, like I think that resonates for sure, especially back when communities around type 1 diabetes kind of weren't there in the same way that they are now, and certainly not in the niches and the different communities. You have to find the one that speaks to you, and which is amazing in a way that type 1 community is there. So how did you meet the other 2 founders?
So I met Jessica and Sophia separately. Jessica I met through a friend, and basically I run a party called Shut the Front Door, which I started at university. I still run it now. And we were looking for some new residents. So we put out a DJ competition, which Jessica entered and won, and became our new resident. And she was playing her first gig there, at the venue we was holding the event at. And she was in the green room and she was waving around a Levemir, Levemir insulin pen. And I'm like, what? I just didn't expect it. Bear in mind that I've always found it so difficult throughout life to come across type 1 diabetics, in a natural environment versus when I'm in the hospital room or the GP.
Yeah.
And the fact that someone who's just came into our DJ competitions, one of the residencies there in the green room, sort of showing off the pen. I was like, this is insane. So obviously I showed mine and we just hit it off. So we were always, obviously we were DJing together, started hanging out more through that. And we've had, conversations about wouldn't it be so great if venues did this, or if, do you know many other type 1 diabetics? What's your experiences been? Have you ever had any situations on the dance floor? And we just like talking about it. And then we're thinking there's something we could probably do with this, but we didn't know at the time what. Then Sophia I met along the way. Sophia's an incredible DJ, and her mom is also an amazing DJ. And in my venue I used to work at, I booked her mom, who's called DJ Emma, to play at some of the parties. Sophia's part of a 4-lady DJ collective called Girls Don't Sing, and they really, really blew up in the last few years. And I had a message from Sophia's mom, just saying, I know you're type 1. It'd be really great if you could reach out. Her touring schedule's gone a bit wild, and it'd be good for her to know there's someone similar in the industry with it. So I'd reached out to Sophia, and we had a few chats on WhatsApp, and we actually then again met in another green room, which is a separate venue that I used to help with the programming of. And we have had the conversations there about, should we do something with this? What's the appetite? We just started having the conversations about doing something. And I mentioned that to Sophia and Jessica separately, actually, Sophia, you should be Jessica, Jessica, you should be Sophia, and we should be, maybe there's something in this together. So we organised a meetup, and actually I think it was a call. And then we organised the meetup after that. And we thought, let's do something. We was initially thinking to do sort of a one-off charity night. And we kind of felt that there's more that we could do than just a one-off. There's something that we can build in this. By this point, we're starting to hear of more and more type 1 diabetics. We're seeing more and more out and about. And we thought, let's make some sort of community, some sort of tribe, something to bring people together that's raising awareness through events, through parties, through music, and get that out there. So from that point, we then thought of type 1 community and came up with the idea and what it was all about. So that's how we all met, really, which, when you think about it, it's 3 close connections, so close to home. And all my life, I felt like I haven't had anyone that close around. So it was really odd, but in a good way. It was one of those, people might say it was fate as such. But yeah, that's how we came together and was all on the same page, and we thought, let's do it.
Had you met many people randomly before with type 1, sort of talking about how you weren't sort of waving your insulin in the air so much? I know it's different now with the tech being more visible, but had you come across many people?
I'd had at school, there was someone a few years below me, who's a friend's sister. Didn't really talk much or anything, but that was it. My PE teacher as well. Then I got to university, and in my first year, there's a friend who I'm still really good friends with now, and she's been to shoot some of the events, and is a really big supporter of type 1 community. And she was also type 1 diabetic. And we only really found out, like, through mutual friends or through friends at halls of residence saying, "Oh, did you know that so-so is diabetic?" So I was like, no, I didn't. So we kind of spoke about it, but we were both in the same boat, that we were both really quiet about it. And we were quite reserved people at the time. So we both knew we had it, and we both knew if we needed to talk about it, we would understand each other. But we're both really independent with it. We never really kind of voiced it in group situations or anything. Yeah. But we knew we were there, and we've always, like, we're really good friends, and we stay in contact and we'll hang out. And as this whole type 1 community movement has been born, she's been really supportive of it. But I don't think I knew anyone else at university. I don't think I came across anyone else. I probably did, but just wouldn't have known.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when I then moved to London, I went to university in Nottingham, just to explain that. When I then moved to London, it was the same again. Didn't really meet many people. Quite funnily enough, there's a DJ called Timur who's played at one of our previous parties, and he's type 1 diabetic, and I used to book him for some of the parties I used to do at the venue I worked at. I had no idea he was diabetic. I only found out in the last 6 months.
So wild, isn't it?
It's so wild. So I didn't really come across many. Like it was more friends of friends, or oh, did you know that person? But they were never close enough to form a bond with. Honestly, for me, it was summer of 2022, not long after the release of lockdown, and the festivals started coming open again. And I think the tech became a bit more available. And I just saw people with sensors, and I was going up to them saying, "Oh my god, are you diabetic?" And then making
Where have you
connections that
been?
way. Yeah, where have you been? So
But yeah,
yeah,
there's something about your own journey in this as well, because I think there's certainly times where if I saw another type 1, I would be hesitant as well. And certainly my own feelings towards my condition. Obviously, now I'm very comfortable talking about it, but there's so many times in my life where I haven't been. So you sort of have to go on that path as well, don't you, for
yeah,
yourself?
yeah,
What was the gap that you saw in creating type 1 community? Because obviously music is your passion. You've been working in it for years. You've done it, since you were a teenager. Probably as you were getting to grips with the condition, this thing has always been present in your life alongside you, diving into this hobby, this world that you're so passionate about. So what were some of the experiences you had and the gap that you saw, having met then and a couple of other people in the world of music and going out and nights out and DJing?
yeah. For me, it was the awareness. There's been so many countless times where I've tried to get into a venue and I've had cereal bar or dextrose or some sort of carb sugary snack on me just in case I need it, in case I have a hypo. And obviously venues such as nightclubs don't really sell food. It's all drink. So you want to bring in your own products for that reason. And the amount of situations at the door where I'm trying to explain to security that I need this for this reason. Oh no, the policy is no external food or drink. I know that's the policy, but I'm just explaining I need this because of this reason. And honestly, I either found that you'd get let in, be fine sometimes, or they'll take it off your throw it in the bin. And it was like, come on, like I'm not trying to rob the venue of a few quid just by trying to bring in my own food or anything. It's not going to impact the sales or anything like that. I actually genuinely need this for my own personal safety. And whether I don't know if the medic areas are going to have an array of sugary snacks on board. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. I don't know. But I'm not going to take that risk. I want to be able to bring this in. So there's countless times where that's happened. Also, I think as well, um, being out and about with your friends and having that tribe with you if they know if something's going wrong and they don't know what to do or they don't know you're diabetic. It's just like you obviously go like going out with your friends and having that network around you. It's just also making them aware of like what to do in that situation. Obviously, going out party and it's obviously dark rooms, flashing lights. There's alcohol involved, and there's a lot of There's been times where I've had hypo experiences and people haven't known what to do. You're trying to get to the bar, it's busy, it's crowded, you're stumbling on people just think you're drunk, they're being a bit aggro, and you're not in a state to be able to stop and spend time explaining because that 30 seconds is quite it's really important, quite critical. Um, and also the extra added stress of then having to think about this before going out, it kind of puts you off. Do you know what I mean? You're trying to plan a night out and you're thinking, okay, I've got to think about this, got to think about that. And it's just making it easier for people and having that awareness and educating venues, educating other people. And also, it's not, people do have unseen conditions that that, doesn't have any physical, it doesn't have any physical, people can't see it basically. And they're normal people and they need to get a level of hospitality as well. A level of medical attention when they need it. So yeah, for us, it's just raising that awareness and making it more accessible.
With that in mind, what are some of the kind of changes that you've seen since you've set this up? Because as I said, it's a celebration. You host these events, you create these amazing spaces where people can feel good. But I know there's an activism piece that's come about from this, from having a presence online, from you guys being 3 individually successful people in this industry. So, and I've seen the way you speak and the way online, it's not about calling people out, it's not about shaming, it's about affecting change through education, and that's a really classy thing to do, and I think it's the way that does create change. So is there an example you can give me of having spoken to a venue or having a message from someone and being able to follow that up, that has created change and made these environments better or safer or more positive for people, not only with type 1 diabetes but other invisible illnesses or chronic conditions, as you mentioned?
Of course, yeah. I mean, yeah, we had a message a few weeks ago now, maybe like last month, from someone who follows the page, community member, about an experience in a London venue where they were in fact turned away from bringing in their insulin pens into the venue, and we couldn't believe it. It's outrageous. Like, I can understand. Well, I can't understand the snacks, but okay, if there's but this was an actual a medical item that's clearly needed, and the person's explaining why they need it, and they weren't allowed in. So we got a message about this, and we were just like, no, this can't stand. We're obviously really fuming, to be honest, and upset. And it was we felt really bad as well, like for the person, who wants to go out with their mates, and you usually get turned away for being too drunk. This was something else. So we just thought we needed to reach out to the venue, and not in a aggro way or anything. We just said, look, this has happened. We know there's been multiple situations as well. Jessica had a situation not as bad as that, but with bringing snacks in there and having to leave them at the door. So we just felt that there's something going wrong here, and they just need educating. I don't think is in any way, shape, or form this is the intention of what they were doing, and it was maybe security misunderstanding. Wasn't sure if it was a policy at the venue. Wasn't sure it was. So we did a bit of an open letter, and we also contacted the venue. They got back to us really quick. Really professional, handled it really well, and we've been back and forth in conversation and speaking to their welfare team and just offering education on what it is this condition is, how we could improve it with them, and we're still in conversation with them now about how we can bring that awareness to the venue and help with working with their team and making sure that this is different. They were referring to the insulin pens as EpiPens, and there was little differences like that was clear that they needed. They've just seen this and that's what they think it is. And EpiPens you can take apart, or some of them you can, so you can you can disguise things in there, whereas Nova Rapid, Levermere's, those, but you can't do that with those. It's not possible. It's not possible to disguise anything, and so therefore it's a legitimate health item, medical item that should have been brought in, should have been allowed in. So so that happened, and then we had the news movement came and did a piece with us with Jessica was the special Jessica. I was at work at the time. It was all really, really fast. So it was turned around in sort of 24 to 48 hours, and it went out online, and the response was huge. We couldn't believe it. Again, it was massive. Obviously the community couldn't believe what happened, but we got so many comments about how that was handled and how positive it was, and so many. It could have been so easy to call out the venue, but we don't like. It doesn't work like that. Like, they're not going to. It's not educational doing that. Instead, we wanted to talk to them and just explain and have just a conversation, which we did, and it worked really well. So hopefully, that will be something that will be considered, and they'll become more aware of conditions like such as this, as to type 1 diabetes and what that means of what you need to bring into a venue to keep yourself safe.
Yeah, it's heartening to hear. Did you feel heartened by how that dialogue went? And I do think it's a credit to you guys of how you handled it as well. And, saying not calling out the venue. And, I've, as you reeled this off and as you were speaking about the experiences you had, I was like, oh yeah, there was that in my head. It's like that time that juice got taken off me. Like one time I got so frustrated, I just burst into tears because I couldn't find the words. And I think when you're in the night out environment, it is rowdy and you do get sort of shut down sometimes by these security teams who do think you're just under the influence or whatever, and that may be the case, but we are we're so on this thing that we have to carry ourselves, and it takes people like yourselves to do this in a mindful way that does create change, because as you said, you're educating and that ripples. And did you feel quite heartened by how that was opened up, that kind of affecting change and the response?
It was sad to read, to be honest. Like if that was me experiencing that, I'd have been really upset. I know my friends would have really had my back. It sounds like they had a great support network around them, and it was dealt with really, really nicely, and it was felt to not feel singled out. But really, you've gone out to have a good time and you've come away probably having one of the worst, and you just want to have fun, and it's to do with this condition that you cannot help. You're born with the genetics of it, and it's another thing it stops you from doing potentially. So it was really sad. We're really glad that we jumped on it, and the person that messaged in, we talk to them frequently, and they're really, really happy that we actually, I don't think they expected anything to come of it. They didn't expect us to do this. They just wanted to share an experience. It wasn't, I'm sharing this, can you do something? So the fact that one message came in and it became this, and the awareness that came out of it, and I think it's almost had about 20,000 plays, that reel, and for us that's 20,000 eyes, diabetic or not, seeing this and understanding, like you say, situations with maybe security or those, everyone's out and it's a busy environment. Also, when you're holding up a queue and you've got other people who may or may not be under the influence or drink, and then you've got that as well. Do you know, it just becomes messy. It just becomes messy, and it just becomes a bit victimizing, and I can see why, like you said about with the juice, or why you might burst into tears, because it just becomes it's a lot of pressure, and all you're trying to do is have a good time.
Yeah. And there's something about being able to go out as someone living with any stressor, whether it's diabetes or not, or work stress or life stress or another medical condition, whatever. When you're going out, that is when you want to kind of just be free. And that's a big part of going out with your mates and having a good time. And for it to be sort of taken away from you in that way by someone who clearly does not understand, there's an extra cruelty to it, I think, that just like sort of, I don't know, really gets to me. This episode of Type 1 is sponsored by Dexcom. I've been using the Dexcom continuous glucose monitor for years, and it's hard for me to express just how much of a difference it's made to my life as someone living with type 1 diabetes. Their CGM sensors give me the confidence to make informed treatment decisions in the moment, which is great for me as I'm often running around, and with just a quick glance I can see exactly where my glucose level is, where it's been, and where it's headed. So please take a look at Dexcom.com. They have a choice of systems, so you can find the right one for your lifestyle. Coming back to the events then, I think there's something really nice about what you're doing, in that it's not just going to be people with diabetes, because they're bringing their partners along, their friends along to these events that are inclusive, that they're about diabetes, but as I said, they're not. They're about celebrating life, being free, etc. So for you, as someone who's hosting these events, what's that been like to witness and experience for yourself as something you've created?
Yeah, well, it's a funny one, the events, because we just love partying. So we want to put on banging events with great t-shirts and great music and just have a good time. It's almost like sometimes the diabetes part is not second, but like it's about making a really positive environment with these people and
Yeah.
just enjoy yourselves. You know you're going to be safe here. You know there's going to be no issues at the door. If you're having a hypo, we've got treat glucose for that, and you're just in an environment with like-minded people who have lived through similar experiences and have the same connections in terms of what they enjoy partying. So it's been really interesting with the events. And when we started them, we wanted to make sure that there were events of sort of two parts. We kind of had these social event ideas and at the parties. And, you know, when you go into a party, obviously the music's loud, it's dark. The only place you're going to really have a proper conversation is probably outside, or you know, it's not, and not everyone's going to want to be outside. So we wanted to make sure there's a space where people could connect and communicate and share experiences. So the events were of two parts. It'd start early as a social, in a separate part of the venue, and that was sort of 8 till 10, early doors where people would come, chat, drink, meet each other, and it's funny because we'd say, you know, this bit isn't it. You know, we're not just going to talk about diabetes for 2 hours. It's just like meeting new people. Obviously, there's diabetic chat, and we're sharing, you know, what CGMs we're on, what insulin we're using, and talking about various things such as that. But then we just talk about what festivals you're going to, or what music, or and you know, just start having a conversation and just see where it goes. And those parts have been really, 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 really important and really, really special. I think they were some of my favorite parts of the past events. Just chatting and just getting to know people, and then you go into the party. So it's kind of like you do your pre-drinks, and then you warm up
Nice.
a bit, and then you go in, and then you go and have a dance. So then you get to really know each other afterwards. So yeah, so they've been really special. We've said from the get-go that this Type 1 community isn't just for you don't have to you don't have to be diabetic to be part of it or come to the events. We've really worked hard on keeping that sort of open message. Like, you know, if you've got family members who are diabetic, or if you've got friends, or if you just want a good party, or if you just want to know more about these things, like, it's for everyone. And I think that has been really helpful as well, because we've just had people who wanted to come and have a good time. We've had people who've had friends and families connected to, but they themselves aren't, but they've came to you know, to discover and talk more with people so they can be more aware in situations when they're with their loved ones. And obviously we've also had a lot of Type 1 diabetics turn up as well. So they've been really, really special. The first event was it was great. We were talking about it for weeks and weeks and weeks afterwards. And the second event, we had a partnership with Lift Glucose, and we worked with them for some of our festival activations as well. So that's when we then introduced the hypo treats available at the bar for free of charge. Just tell someone you're having a hypo, or tell them you're diabetic, and there's no questions asked, sort of thing. So bringing that in was kind of an extra layer of making these events special and unique, and sort of having that kind of give back and raising awareness, because people, you know, you show people this and you take it to the venue, so it's like, what's this? It's got alcohol in it now. And I'd obviously talk to them in advance, say it's called a glucose shot, but it's not tequila. It's there's zero alcohol in this. And yeah, they've been really supportive of that, and all the festivals that we work with as well, separate to the events, they've all been really positive. And that's really nice when you've got, because sometimes it can be difficult when people have policies in place, or it's a bit foreign, or don't know. And we've been really careful to make sure that we're working with the right venues and festivals that would support this as well, especially in our infancy.
Yeah. I mean, that's how you came to my attention. The first time I knew that you guys were doing this was someone messaged me on Instagram in my DMs a photo of a poster in a toilet in a club close to where I used to live in London. And it was, if you're living with diabetes and you're having a hypo, we have glucose treatments at the bar. And I was like, what is this? Where is this? Oh my God. Because like you say, like, especially if you've come up against being able to bring your stuff in, knowing that there's hypo treatments there, like that's an extra just level of sort of being able to be more focused on the night out and having a nice time with your mates, isn't it? And it's just making it easier and less about diabetes and more about just getting on and doing the things that you like to do, like going out and having a night out. And I think as well, like the sort of parallels that run, you know, going out on a night out, being on your feet, dancing, the sugar that can be in alcohol, sometimes whether, you know, you've asked for a diet mixer and you get a full fat one, like so much going on that is kind of parallel to, like, or has the capacity to sort of derail the diabetes bit and take away from your night out. So the awareness piece, being in a room where people understand what it is that you may or may not need at any given time in the night, I think that's huge, especially for people, like you say, who have been diagnosed or newly diagnosed and maybe diagnosed as an adult and they're already established in the things that they love and going out on festivals and music and are wondering whether this is even possible for them. Have you had any interactions or messages around that? I think you mentioned it at the top, but, you know, sort of speak to me a little bit about the kind of interactions you've had around the spaces you're creating for people to do the thing they love.
So we've had lots and lots of various ones, and one thing I will talk about, which I think was quite special around meeting new people and not so much messages, but I guess that kind of connection was we did a we're sort of lucky enough and to have a partnership with Brockwell Live, who run various festivals in Brockwell Park. So they had a weekend and they had Project 6 Festival, Wide Awake Festival, and Across the Tracks at the late May bank holiday this year. And we didn't really know, we wanted some sort of presence and we had this idea and we didn't know how to go about it, but we thought let's do a proposal, let's send it off to them and see what they thought. And they were really, 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 really supportive of it. And we had a pitch there alongside various other traders, but we were down as a not-for-profit partner. And what we created was these type 1 communities hypo savior kits. And essentially all it was a tote bag with our logo and a bit of branding on. And within there it had glucose treats, so lift glucose, a couple of different flavors. We had naked bars. We had some flyers of information, QR codes taking us to the Instagram and various bits of other information. Some USB sticks with some tunes on it if anyone was DJs, and we've got some exclusives for people. And some stickers, some fun merch like
Love.
That. We had a big I should have put it behind me actually, a big sign that had our logo on it. It says with the slogan "Rare from Parties to make life with diabetes better." And we had that propped up. We had this store. We thought, okay, we're probably going to, there's fair few double-figure 1,000 people going to be here over the weekend, but we'll probably talk to 5 diabetics. Fine, we're happy with that. Nah, they came thick and fast. There would be some people had seen, like, we'd obviously announced this on socials and announced the Hypo Savior Kit, which got a really positive response. People commenting saying, "Oh my God, I'm going to come and see you." And then we discovered lots of new people there who had never heard of us, walking past the festival, seeing a big sign about diabetes that looked fun, and they were like, "What is this?" And we was explaining what it was and why we were here. And the reason why we came up with it is, again, trying to get your snacks in, juices in, sugary glucose, try to get those in to FAF, as we know. And also offering a space of where people can talk to us and get to know, and obviously raising that awareness. But we wanted to make the hypo kit, so when you do get into the festival and you're at the main stage and there's 10,000 people around you and you're at the front row and you're having a hypo and you've got to get out of that, that's going to be impossible. You've obviously having a good time, you have some drinks, sun's blazing. We wanted to make it easy for people having a hypo to be able to solve that and not have to sift through the crowds, then get to the bar, which at a festival is obviously a larger space. It's not so much like a club where the bar's just over there. Then you've got to get to the bar, it's busy, it's always queues. You're probably going to get, either then talk to the people, you're probably going to be having a hypo, you're probably not going to be making the most sense. And then it becomes difficult. Then you got to go to the food truck, and then you got to get some carbs. There's a queue there. It's probably going to take 10, 20, 10, 15 minutes because it's hot food that's being prepped. It just all adds up. And we were like, how can we take the stress away from people of that? Okay, we'll give them a kit that they can have on their shoulder, and whilst they're at the festival, and if they have a hypo, they've got what they need there to keep going, and it will get them through that hypo bit, and then they don't need to worry about then getting a bigger meal or whatever they do afterwards. But that immediate treatment of curing the hypo was there, and that's what we wanted to provide. And so many people came up to us and were chatting about their story, were like, I never knew such a thing ever existed. This is an amazing idea. Following us there and then, keeping in touch. We had some messages saying, thank you so much for this. I actually had 2 hypos that day, and I had what I needed on me. It was great. And it was those sort of connections I felt that weekend was incredible. Like those sort of connections and follow-up messages and conversations across the weekend they were priceless. Like that was, for me, that was one of the points where I was like, this is really positive. Not that it ever, like, obviously the whole thing was, but that was something else I felt.
Yeah.
Really special. And I think as well, like if you're taken out, you are fighting your way through the crowds, and then you've lost your friends as well. Like
Exactly,
you've missed the act that you were so excited to see, it's just all these extra layers of things. And that's why you go to a festival or to a concert or to a gig. It's to see the band with your friends, or, and so it sounds trivial, but it really isn't. It's just these things that enable us to be who we are outside of diabetes, and you're sort of facilitating people being able to just be themselves and not be so much on type 1 without kind of compromising safety. And that is really special. And for people to just not have to explain it, that as well, like it's exhausting sometimes, isn't it?
There's so many extra things that tag onto this that you think of as you start to talk about them. Like you say, losing your friends. Like me and Jessica lose our friends all the time at festivals because you have to go off to the to the truck to go and get a sugary drink or whatnot, and then there's no signal.
Yes, the signal's gone. The friend with the flag has gone home.
Yeah. Then you got to fight through. It's honestly, like, it's just more layers that we didn't want people to have to worry about, and just ultimately it leads to them having the best time they possibly could have.
Yeah, incredible. So I just want to briefly touch on your personal sort of lifestyle and juggling all of this with a full-time job, your lovely wife as well, and life outside of work and the type 1 community on top. You work in events, which is not a 9-to-5 job. So how do you manage your own type 1, DJing, on your feet for a long time with sets? Just how do you go about navigating this for yourself?
Yeah, it's difficult, to be honest. Like, it's one of those things that I don't think there'll ever be a guidebook to. I think every scenario is going to be different. In my previous job, I was required to be at the events a lot more than my current job, which meant long nights, getting home really early. You kind of your schedules. I'd forget to bring the Levemir insulin out with me. I'd have my Nova Rapid, but my long lasting I'd forget, and then you kind of then take it too much technically, because you take it when you get in at 4 a.m. and then you'd wake up at 10, 11 a.m. You take it again. So
you're doubling up.
You're doubling up, and you don't really sometimes think about that. And all these things have a knock on effect. But I think that in terms of time, I think I'm quite lucky. For me, that I work in the music industry, and this is all about music. There's quite it can kind of coexist in the same way. Like, sometimes I feel that some of the people get it, my work get it, that I do this, and that sometimes it comes into my time. But in terms of managing like diabetes in at work, they've been really good. I've got like a little fridge in the first aid room with my insulins locked away,
Love.
various bits like that. But some places aren't like that. It's difficult. And
Yeah.
in my old role, it's a lot different. It was a lot more demanding. They wouldn't think so much about, right, I can't go to this meeting right now, or I need to go to the toilet. I'm going to the toilet frequently. It's probably because I'm hyper. My sugar's high. It's just like, why is this happening? Why is that happening? And it took a while to like sort of educate around that, especially because I was quite quiet about it. So I think everywhere's a bit different. But in terms of managing to stay on top of type 1, I tell you what, it's helpful that there's a few of us involved. Because it's
Yes.
full on. And doing that news, turning around that news piece in how quickly we did, that could have easily been missed. And it's really grateful that there's a team of us and there's a community of us running it. We've also recently started a type 1 council. And we have in regular meetings and meetups, and that's formed of ourselves and a few of the, I guess, early adopters or early community members who have been either involved in the events or have just been people that have been really supporting it. And they share comments, opinions, and we discuss anything that can help us really. And really want to that's one thing, we really want to involve the community, because everyone's got different needs and requirements. So we don't want it to just be our voices championing it and dictating it. It needs to involve people and have that sense of inclusivity. So having the council as well has been really helpful in terms of managing our time, and also making sure that we're staying active and current, because it's so easy to get distracted with personal lives. And something like this, we want to be able to be having a voice out there, making sure that it's present as much as possible and supporting.
Yeah, I think it really speaks to the gaps that I certainly found when it was maybe 15 years ago now. I wanted to take better care of my health, and I knew I had a responsibility to do that. But I was like in my early 20s, and I was going to festivals for the first time, and I was going out a lot, and I was living in a new city, and I had a new career. There was nothing out there that spoke to me in that way. Do you know what I mean? It was like, here's a really medical textbook.
Yeah.
Here's the medical advice and the kind of day-to-day of taking your insulin. And I was like, cool. But how do I apply this to this situation, this real world situation? And so I think the council and having all those different voices and experiences, because everyone goes through this differently. Everyone's idea of what fun is different, right?
Yeah.
But we're all out here trying to live our lives. So it's really cool. What do you need help with if there are people listening going, this is amazing? Like, what have you found? As we've alluded to, this has kind of taken on a life of its own and is evolving. And you three are all busy people with your own careers as well. So what is it that you could put sort of a plea out for, if you like?
I think one of the big things that's on the list at the moment is getting outside of London. We've done, we all live myself and Jessica live in London. Sophia lives up in Liverpool. Sophia's touring a lot with Girls Don't Sing. And me and Jessica are flat out at work. It's very busy. But just because of the nature of it, the events of me and Jessica being here, the events have been in London. So we're going through, we've actually just put in a funded application with the National Lottery to support a Northern tour. Because we really want to get outside of London and have a presence in other cities. Diabetes can be anywhere. It's not just London. And we've had so many people message saying, I love this, but I live in Leeds, or I love this, I live in Manchester. Could we do something in this place, that place? And we want to, we'd love to, we need to. And I think that's where we need a bit of support. We want to make councils in different areas, so there's representatives of type 1 community in local areas. So it's not just about coming to London or coming, like, we want to be able to share the experiences and spread that awareness and those connections that we're making down here. We want people to have that set up for people to be able to make those in their local towns or cities. So that's something we're working towards at the moment. It's going to be a bit of work. It's going to take a bit of time, but that's something we want to have. We need some help with. We have had a message from some people in different cities saying, I would love to be a representative of this in my city. And that's really positive because people are thinking in the same way as us. And it's great when they hear this is what we're working towards. We just need to be able to fund it, really. It ultimately comes down to that. We're not for profit. We've just put our own money into this, and we're doing what we can to try and grow it and get a bit of a pot and be able to bring it to other areas.
Yeah. Okay. And do you have ultimate goal? Like, what's your vision for Type 1 community, particularly now that you're in it and the ball is rolling,
Yeah. Well, I think getting out of London and having a presence in other locations is really, really high up on the agenda. And that's a current mission. I think one of the ultimate missions is really to branch, not just be about type 1 diabetes, but also be about all invisible conditions, and really making a community around that. Because at the end of the day, there's so many invisible conditions that I'm only going to guess or assume that are probably going through similar situations with different medications or different reasons to bring this in, or different support networks that people don't quite understand. And we're doing it for type 1 diabetes. There's obviously lots of things around mental health conditions. I know there's a big tinnitus community as well, especially around in the music world. Epilepsy is something that's come up as well because of lights and lasers. But there's a heap more. I've got friends with invisible conditions that would love to be part of this, and would love to have something similar for their disabilities. So for us, we would love to be able to bridge that gap and sort of unite all the visible conditions to be a wider community. And that's something that would be amazing if we could be a part of a movement of that, and bringing that awareness to venues and to clubs and to festivals as one sort of movement. That's something ultimately would be amazing to work towards, and we would love, we kind of have that sort of longer goal in mind, but that's not going to happen in the near future, unfortunately. But we're thinking that, it's in the background.
Yeah, I think like this momentum and the wave, this is so needed, and it takes people like yourselves to put your heads together and just go for it. And I think it's like, this is so needed, like you say, for so many people beyond type 1. And the music industry is a powerful industry, and I think people listening probably have a connection to type 1, but there are people beyond that, their friends, people they know, that can affect change. People working in events, people working in marketing and PR, and everyone's touched by something. And I really just think the power of the collective voice and power of sharing information and connection and keeping the fun at the heart of it is something really, really special. So where can people find you if they want to get involved, if they want to say hello, if they want to offer help, or just give you props for what you're doing?
Yeah. So our main comms at the moment is on Instagram. So we're at Type 1 Community, and that's one spelt out, ONE. We are just in the process of launching our WhatsApp community group as well, which we are going to be revealing. I think I might have said too much there, but we're going to be revealing this at our first birthday on the 16th of November. At a party with all my friends. To be honest, people know it's fine. So
maybe we'll put this out to mark your 1 year.
Yeah.
How about we do that? That'd be nice.
That's a good shout.
Happy birthday. Speaking from the future.
It's been something that's been we've had it on the list for a while, and we just wanted the time for it to be right, and it feels right after we've built a community for a year to have these people in a community group where they can discuss ideas. In our small council group, we started talking. Someone posted in there saying, "Has anyone had any issues with pizza?" And honestly, the floodgates opened. Everyone was everyone's like, "Yeah, this. Oh my god, blah blah blah." But it's pizza. I love it. What do I do? I get spikes. and it just starts conversation, and you learn things. And this is, we want to widen that out. So that's something that we're working on, and that will be publicly open, and that will be accessible as well. You'll be able to find the details through that on our Instagram at Type 1 Community.
Amazing. And let's not forget that you three are also incredible DJs in your own right, doing all sorts of amazing things. So, there's events, there's fun to be had, and we'll make sure that all that information is there as well. But in just a year, this is absolutely phenomenal, and I can't wait to see what you guys are going to get up to next. So thank you so much for speaking to me today. It's been great.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure, Jen. Really enjoyed it. Thank you. It's lovely to meet you and connect.
Nice to connect. Yeah, for sure.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of Type 1-on-1. Please remember that nothing you hear on this podcast should be taken as medical advice. I'm definitely not a healthcare professional. If you like what you hear, hit subscribe and do leave a little review on iTunes if you have time. It really helps to spread the word about type 1 diabetes. And thank you so much for listening.